Welcome to another episode of The Corner Booth, the official podcast of restaurantowner.com. Today, the restaurant industry is changing faster than ever. Learn from successful independent restaurant operators and other industry leaders as they share best practices that will help you engage your team, delight your guests, and grow your business.
Hey, thanks for joining us again on another episode of Corner Booth. I'm Chris Tripoli with restaurantowner.com. Restaurantowner.com, as most of you may be aware, is the single most complete source of information and education for the independent restaurant operator that's on the web today. This Corner Booth podcast is brought to you by ServeSafe. Let's be honest, most of us aren't struggling because we don't care about food safety. We're just busy. Between staffing issues and running service, it's easy for systems to slip. What's helpful about the updated ServeSafe Manager training is it simplifies things, what to focus on, what to track, and how to stay consistent without overcomplicating it, especially if you've got multiple locations. That consistency really matters. Take a look at servesafe.com, and if you're a restaurantowner.com member, you can save 15% on the ServeSafe suite. Many restaurant operators are very interested in trying to build additional value in their brand around a product. Whether the product is a sauce, a chip, a dressing, a marinade, trust me, it's all over there. Baking, this issue has come up a lot. There's a process. How do you do it? How do you test it? Where do you make it? Can you distribute online sales? And we're going to talk about all of that process today because we've got a very, very successful person who has been able to take a product and make snacking and care for your health and gluten-free all work together. I'm talking about a product line called Mightylicious. And if you haven't heard about it, check it out, okay? For full disclosure, yes, I've been eating the samples and I have my favorites. Get a hand on some Mightylicious cookies and develop your own favorites. But today we're going to be listening to Carolyn Haeler, who is the founder, creator, CEO of Mightylicious. She's going to share her story and tell you all about how you can make something successful and tasty. Carolyn, thank you so much. Welcome to Corner Booth.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, this is a tremendous interest of mine. As I told you, I've been looking so forward to having you guest because many listeners, I think, are envious of people who can actually create a product and then take this product for mass, online sales, retail stores. This is difficult. And then, of course, yours is not a tremendously common product. You took something like a good cookie snack, but wanted to make it also healthy. It's gluten-free. It's tasty. Thank you so much again for the samples. And again, welcome. Let's start with you, though. Before we jump into the product and how you're doing and where you're at, et cetera, how did Carolyn get interested in this? What's your story? And how did you get started with this?
Yeah, no, I'm not a food person by trade. I used to work in supply chain and operations. I graduated from college and went into supply chain and operations. I worked as a public sector consultant for the Department of Defense, did that for 4 years and was like, well, this isn't really what I want to be doing with my life forever. Went to graduate school, had a really wonderful experience there. One of the founders of Honest Tea, Barry Nailbuff, was one of my professors in graduate school. So I learned all about their sort of story and launching that product out of Barry's sort of kitchen in New Haven. And then, Seth, them putting their tea in a Snapple bottle and then Seth driving it down to a Whole Foods and delivering it himself. And it was very inspired by that. But ended up going into finance. So working in finance for about a decade as a stockbroker. Moved to New York after school. And it was one year post-graduation that I started getting some indigestion. And it started off as really mild symptoms, but it was annoying enough that I was talking to my GP about it and was like, What is this? I've never had this before. How do I deal with this? And over the course of 9 months, my immune system started failing. My hair was falling out, skin turned gray. At one point, a specialist I was working with looked at me and was like, maybe you have HIV. And I was like, maybe. Should have tested for that 9 months ago. I didn't. I had celiac disease, but that's how devastating disease can be if it goes untreated. I mean, what happens, the difference between an allergy and an intolerance is sort of a symptom and a discomfort, whereas I create an antibody that attacks my colon. And your colon absorbs vitamins and minerals that you need to survive. So if you are destroying it, you're not absorbing minerals and vitamins and all those things, which is why my skin was gray and my hair was falling out, even though I was eating things that were obviously gluten-free, because many things are naturally gluten-free. And I ate a lot of salad, I ate a lot of fruit, I ate a lot of, meat like chicken and things like that. But because I was causing damage to my colon, I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. I had
no idea celiac could become that.
Oh, it would kill me. If I ate gluten, I would die. It's a chronic, life-threatening disease if not treated. And it can manifest itself in many different ways. So I have gastrointestinal symptoms. I get very nauseous. I get bloating. I get incredible pain and fatigue and headaches. And I react in 180 seconds. So it can be like a cross-contamination in cinnamon from the mill it was on. And if I sprinkle a bit of that cinnamon on my coffee, I react in less than 3 minutes to it. For other people, they can absorb gluten through their skin. So they can't have any products like lotions, shampoo, anything that can cause them to react. I have never had a reaction to my skin, and then other people can have psychological. So they might not have any real physical symptoms, but they can be diagnosed with like psychological schizophrenia and things like that because the gluten impacts their brain. And that's how so there's a broad spectrum of symptoms that you can get as celiac, and all of them are very traumatizing. I got the diagnosis at the age of 31. So up until that point, I had been fortunate enough to like travel and live abroad. And I've had the croissants in Paris, and I've drunk the beer in Germany, and I've had the pasta in Italy, and I know what food should taste like and the joy of food. And I obviously am passionate about food, even though I've been in finance and I'm more of a numbers nerd. I really love food, and I've always loved baking as a sort of hobby. I wouldn't even say that I was good at baking, but I enjoyed the process of baking. So I got this diagnosis, and it changes your life profoundly because sort of like the doctor handed me this piece of paper, and it was like, describes celiac disease and, gluten and what it is. And they like send you on your way. And I'm like, okay. So like immediately you think of like all the joy in life, bread, cake, pasta, beer. And you're like, okay, so I'm carb free now, right? But gluten's in everything. It's it's an ingredient, but it's also used as a preservative. It's used as a coloring, and it's used as a filler. So sometimes it is in like cinnamon and cumin and paprika because either there's cross-contamination on the line, or sometimes people use it as a filler. And if you're a big enough company, that fraction of a penny that you're saving by adding gluten to the cinnamon ends up being real money during tax season. And so it can be included in things intentionally or accidentally. It's also in caramel color, and caramel color is in Pepsi and Coca-Cola. It's often ginger ale. It can be used in apple cider vinegar. It's in crackers. It's in cookies. It's in almost everything. Anything that needs to be brown probably has caramel color, and the caramel color actually comes from gluten because that's what gluten does, is it browns things. So I love Coca-Cola. I love Diet Coke. It's something that I was having every single day as my 3:00 break. There's like in finance, there's this, religious 3:00 break that everyone takes, and they go get their second coffee or their third coffee. And I would get my Diet Coke. And of course I would feel incredibly ill afterwards because the gluten in the Diet Coke was giving me symptoms. There's gluten in soy sauce. There's gluten in imitation crab. It's used as a preservative, and companies are getting better now because of the awareness of better for you, but it can be in things like ham in the deli section as a preservative. So they're really like, it wasn't like, it's not just carbs, it's almost everything that's manufactured. And so that becomes unbelievably limiting when you're an adult, and food is nourishment and sustenance, and I had to learn how to heal my body, but I also had to learn how to survive again because I can no longer, I was working in finance, I was getting up at 5 a.m., I was going to the gym, I had to be in the office by 7:30, and then I wasn't leaving the office till 7, and there's no lunch break when you're a stockbroker. The markets don't stop, and so you don't leave your desk. So convenience is really important to manage. Being able to grab a bagel, being able to grab a sandwich, being able to grab a muffin, being able to throw these types of foods, that helps really facilitate our lifestyles. People don't get up and make themselves breakfast. There's no 1 hour lunch break.
No.
You know, you have to like grab it and go. You have to be able to eat it at your desk. You have to be able to put it in your backpack or your bag or your purse or whatever. And bread really facilitates that. When
Yes.
you remove bread, your life becomes a whole lot more tricky. Obviously, like I was like I ate a lot of apples, a lot of bananas, and a lot of yogurt, which is great. That's really healthy for you. But you also start to realize that eating the same things over and over again start to have a psychological impact on you. And
Yeah, you need a little more variety.
you do need it even impacts your taste buds. Your taste buds get fatigued when you're eating the same thing over and over. Eventually your taste buds are like, I'm never eating that again. Um, and so we do like we're programmed to need variety and want variety. And so I've been living with it for a very long time and sort of starting to understand the impact and learning how to nourish myself and learning how to sort of get around these things. But even today, it's been over 10 years since I was diagnosed, but I have to think about I don't ever get to take eating for granted,
I
right?
guess
So
not.
any meal, even whether it's a meal or a snack or anything, like just getting ice cream. Like we were at Central Park this weekend with my babies and everyone stopped to get ice cream. I, of course, got ice
Sure.
cream in a cone, but I was like, I need a spoon because I'm not going to be able to eat the cone and I'm going to need like all of these little like things are things that in every single interaction, I'm having to make some sort of adjustment or modification to what I'm doing. And that becomes even more pronounced when I'm traveling. I no longer prefer to stay at hotels ever because I have so little control over what I can eat and what access I have to food at a hotel. Often I
see.
have to order because the kitchen is not going to be gluten-free. They're not going to have a gluten-free, so they won't even serve me oftentimes because of the liability. So then I'm ordering a Caesar salad with no croutons. They forget to take the croutons off. Now I'm picking croutons off a soggy salad, and it's, not fun for me. So I tend to stay at Airbnbs. I make sure that Airbnb is like depending on where I'm traveling, what I'm there for, within walking distance to a convenience store or grocery store, so that I know, like when I travel, I'm going to shows, so I'm up early. I need to take my food with me. I don't have a lunch break often. So I'm like, anything I eat during the day has to be brought with me, which means I have to prepare it the night before. And these are all things that make traveling for me logistically far more challenging than just being like, oh, where's the hotel block? I'm going to go stay at the Hilton.
Sure.
And these are things that I no longer get to take for granted and things that impact me. So I was living with this, working in finance. I was having a bad week and I was unhappy at my job. I just transferred to a new position. I didn't like it. I didn't like my commute. I was sad. And I'd been doing some Christmas shopping. So I'd been shopping all day. And I don't know if this ever happens to you, but sometimes you go shopping and you get focused and you forget to eat and you're like, oh, it's 3:00 and I haven't had breakfast. So this happened to me and I'm starving and I realize it. And there's like 40 people in line in front of me. And I was like, oh, man. And I looked down and of course there's a package of gluten-free cookies right in front of me. And it was a beautiful box. This was this exquisitely packaged pack of cookies. I had this story about our artisanal chef and her celiac journey. And I open it up and I take a bite and I can't even swallow it. And it's like, over the time between my diagnosis and this point, this was like 2016, 2017, there'd been a lot of products on the market, but the quality and the innovation of those products didn't seem like, even though there's more products, it just seemed like the same product. There wasn't higher quality, higher standards, or higher anything. And I was like, you know what? I went to business school. I know how to bake. I'm going to make a gluten-free cookie that tastes good.
There you go.
And so I did. I eventually just left my job because I was unhappy anyway. And I really focused on this. And I spent 3 months baking like finance hours, I got up at 6, which to me felt luxurious at the time. It was like, I woke up at 6 and I would just bake all day. Like literally I made tens of thousands of horrific cookies, just terrible. I realized that the reason why eventually I realized that my cookies weren't good is because the chemistry for gluten-free baking is completely different from the chemistry of normal baking and you can't substitute them. There's no such thing as 1-for-1. So I would have to create recipes from scratch. I then learned more about the ingredients. I was like, the ingredients I'm using that are available, on the shelf are not conducive to high quality baked goods. And so I had to learn how to make my own flour blend and what went into that. And so I did that. And after about 3 months, the first cookie I created was my brown butter chocolate chip. I live on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I still live here. And I walked into the Whole Foods on 86th Street. And I was just looking for feedback because I learned this, like create a prototype, get feedback.
Yeah.
Got the prototype. So I made my cookies. It was a recipe that was delicious. It was a recipe that I could repeat because making a recipe one time is one thing, but making it exactly the same every single time is far more challenging than I think a lot of people appreciate. So I could replicate it over and over again. Put it into a tintype coffee bag, print it out, like design some labels, put it on there, walked into my Whole Foods and I was like, I'm looking for feedback. The woman at the information booth was like, go talk to Chris, who's behind the cakes. And I was like, okay, went to the cakes. Chris was there. He was like, that's the best gluten-free cookie I've ever tasted. He was like, I want you to go down to Union Square and I want you to go to Brooklyn. We sell more gluten-free products than any other Whole Foods in Manhattan. Asked for the team leader there. I didn't know what this meant, but he was asked for the team leader. And if we all email the regional office, they may onboard you. Fortunately, I used to be a stockbroker, so I'm not a shy person. So I ran down to Union Square and then I ran over to Brooklyn. I talked to the team leaders there. This was on a Thursday and they were onboarding me by Monday.
No
So
kidding.
I that was my go-to. I didn't have licenses. I didn't have insurance. I didn't have a commercial kitchen.
No, you're still working out of your home at this point, right?
I was making like 12 cookies at a time in my 24-inch oven in my studio apartment in Manhattan. Right? I was like, oh, but this is a good problem to have. If I had a lot of good problems over but I mean, that was I did that because that was the story I learned from Honest Tea and from Barry. And they just put their tea in a Snapple bottle and they put their label on the front and then they walked into the Whole Foods and they sold it. And I was like, I can do that. Like, that's not hard. And that was what launched my business. It was 3 Whole Foods. So Whole Foods has, and they still have it today, even though they're owned by Amazon. They have a local forager program, which means that if you are a local supplier in their region and they have Whole Foods there, you can supply a small market. And they work with like local distributors. So you don't have to have this big national distributor. And they help set that up. So I started with 3 Whole Foods in Manhattan. By the end of the year, I was in 10. By the end of the next year, I was in 2 regions. And at that point, so the first full year, I was renting. I'm fortunate to live in Manhattan, so we have a lot of catering and restaurants here and bakeries. And just so you know, when you walk into a bakery and they've got all these products and there's one little oven, they didn't bake that there. There's no way to bake all of those different products in that one little oven. It's baked elsewhere and then it's delivered to them in the morning. They do bake some things there, but no little oven bakes croissants and muffins and breads. That doesn't happen in one little oven. So there's this whole industry in Manhattan for those secondary sort of commercial kitchens. I'm sure a lot of your listeners own them or run them or use them. So I rented out a space in Queens every weekend. I couldn't support myself and pay my New York City rent by selling cookies at the farmer's market, which I also did. So I went back to being a stockbroker, did that during the week, and then baked cookies every weekend by myself, by hand. And then by the time we were in a full region, baking cookies is actually relatively fast. I mean, whether you're baking, a dozen cookies or 100 cookies or 10,000 cookies, it all takes about an hour. It's packaging the cookies that takes a very, very long time. And so we can no longer package. I had a couple people helping me, but with 4 of us could no longer package the cookies. So I went to a commercial facility over in Queens and got enough attention and notoriety that once Whole Foods has you, other people get interested, especially like some buyers just walk into Whole Foods from like competitors to see what they have. And then they contact you. So it was unbelievably lucky that I got picked up in this way and that I was able to grow organically.
Mm-hmm.
But it is that easy. Like if you are a restaurant owner who has a product, all you need is a prototype.
Yeah.
Some samples. So, and you can get the packaging off of Amazon. The packaging in the beginning doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to look presentable. So if you have like a sauce, like a hot sauce, a tomato sauce, you get that packaging. You have in a restaurant, you know how to do that. You get someone to design and print labels at FedEx. Get a graphic designer to design something for you. Get your labels from FedEx. Do it all by hand, and then you start shopping. You walk into grocery stores.
Yeah, you do. You just have to be that confident. So for those listeners who maybe don't have that decade of in-your-face stockbroker that came naturally.
Just be the Wolf of Wall Street. That's all that requires.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So you're just going to have to grab a piece of that, though, because it's hand-to-hand, eyeball-to-eyeball combat. And
it is hand-to-hand combat. Yeah. And it's the whole time. Even now, I'm in, most states. I'm in Walmart. I'm in Giant. I'm in H-E-B. It's still the entire time. It is hand-to-hand combat. I have, national brokers, and I'm like, you got to get me in the room with the buyer, and they have to hear my story, and I'm going to have them taste the product. This is a hand-to-hand combat industry.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes. And you know what? It sounds scary, but I mean, people like to eat. So getting like selling stocks is far harder. So calling up someone and trying to convince them to invest in some sort of derivative product is far harder than walking into a store and being like, would you like to try a cookie? Like most people want to try a cookie. And you're walking like grocery stores want, they invest a lot of time and money and energy into sourcing, and they love food and they love their category and they want their store to be successful. And finding innovative products in the industry is hard. So if you walk in and you have a beautiful product with a beautiful label and you've got this story, they generally like that attention. They generally are willing to talk to you. They're definitely mostly willing to give you feedback, which is also a gift. And it's not nearly as scary as you think it is. There certainly you will encounter some people who are, will blow you off and or are not receptive, but the majority of people, want a successful store. They want innovative products. They want things that taste good. They want to talk to founders, and they're willing to talk to you.
And so this was just how many years ago did you actually create this and
So,
go to get the feedback?
All the R&D happened in 2017. So I spent 3 months just baking everything. I did immediately create an LLC and paid for that. I always had an LLC and now I'm a C Corp, but I went on to like harvard.com or and got a Delaware LLC and had all of that paperwork. So I was a legitimate business, even though I didn't have any licenses. And that was 2017. I spent 3 months perfecting my product and my recipe. And I think a lot of your clients will probably already have the recipe. So and then I literally went on to Amazon and bought some 50 tin tie coffee bags in craft paper. And then I printed myself. I didn't even go to FedEx. I had a nice printer and I printed out my label. I did the graphic design myself. I'm fortunate to also have an art degree. So I did the graphic design in the beginning myself. But a graphic designer is not that expensive. You can hire someone by the hour and, spend a few $100s to get a pretty label made for you. And I just put my product in and just started. I walked into Fairway. I went to Morton Williams. I went to Whole Foods. I went to Butterfield's. I went into all the grocery stores on my block. I went into pharmacies that I knew sold food. And you're going to get a lot of no's. But you just need. We have a saying in finance, and it goes like this: you have to get 100 no's to get one yes, but that's all you need. So the idea is the more no's you're collecting, the closer you are to getting that one yes. And that one yes is going to be your client for life. And so the sales process is that same way. In food, I didn't have to collect 100 no's. It's more like 10 no's till you get to a yes. But you're going to go through a bunch of no's until you get to that yes. And that's the sales process. And you just have to do it religiously and without hesitation.
And do some of the other retail giants that you're working with operate a lot like Whole Foods, where they allow you to come in regionally and whatnot? Or
some do and some don't. So there are some stores like Whole Foods and Sprouts and a lot of independents. They want to be industry leaders. So they're interested in the new cutting edge stuff because that's what their customer is. But a company like Publix is going to you need to have 10 years of history and velocity data, and you need to be in a certain number of stores before they'll even entertain a conversation with you. Right. So, but that's okay because you want to grow steadily, but in a controlled manner. So if you walk into a Whole Foods and you are a small independent store and you're making your stuff in your kitchen and they say, I'm putting you in nationally, you're going to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
So you don't want that.
And that was where I was going. I thought, boy, some of the brands that you were just mentioning, I know it started with Whole Foods, but you jumped into a bunch of others and Ralph's and Costco. And I thought, wow, do all of them allow you to take small steps? Or if you go national?
Costco does. Costco does. So Costco is interesting. They really like innovative things. I've had a really great experience with Costco, but they also are very cognizant, they don't want to bankrupt you, so they won't be more than 20% of your business. So you do have to have some sales with Costco before getting in there, but if you can get their contact information for their buyer and you send them a great product, they are interested. They because they do rotations. Costco constantly is rotating things. They do quarterly rotations. So they have a core set of stuff that's there every day, but then they are every quarter bringing in new things for their customers. So yeah, it's dependent on the brand. I would say that for where to target are if you have a great product and it's probably going to be a little bit more expensive because you're not Cheerios. You don't own the entire, like, if you're like Cheerios and Nabisco, they own the fields that grow the wheat that goes into the cereal, right? So they are fully integrated and they're selling things at $2.99. You're not going to be that when you're starting out. You're going to be a premium product with premium taste. So the best place to start is at the premium independent grocery stores.
Yes, makes sense.
They're
Okay,
smaller, so
so
they're more independent. They have more control over their product assortment. They're looking for innovative products. They're not necessarily tied to any big national brokers. So they're going to have smaller or distributors. So they probably will have relationships with like the big distributors, but they'll also have independent relationships with smaller distributors whom you are going to be a better fit for. So you start where you sort of think where is your core customer. Your core customer is not at Walmart. Your core customer is at a Butterfield. It's probably at a Sprouts. Sprouts is a little bit bigger, but like those more natural specialty stores where there's maybe 10 stores or 30 stores. And you just walk in and you talk to them.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. So let's talk about that next step, because obviously you got started. You started with that brown butter chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
You hit the streets. You got going. You had to get into a kitchen. You were growing steadily. So then how did you continue to grow? What was the next step? Because you had to also get creative. I mean, when did my favorite cookie start? The oatmeal coconut. And
that was at the request of Whole Foods, actually. So there's also there's a cash flow issue that you're having to maintain because all of this is expensive and you're not suddenly profitable because there's marketing. So one of the evil truths about getting into grocery stores is there's fees to get on that shelf. You're not getting on there for free. In the beginning, for smaller independent, I'm a woman-owned, LGBTQ-owned business. I often try to leverage that because I'm small and independent. And I say, instead of that, $15 a SKU, how we do free fill, I'll support some ads. But there is a cost. Most grocery stores expect you, like if they put you in, they have 30 stores and they're going to put you in 15 of their best stores, they're going to want 2 cases per store for free.
Oh.
Which means you're not going to break even depending on how expensive your product is and what your velocities are for a year and a half, maybe.
Yeah.
At least 12 months. So it is not it is a cash heavy endeavor to engage in. It's not necessarily that easy. You need to be able to fund free fills. And then across the industry, like some of the bigger grocery store giants who own, are conglomerates at this point, there is a free fill requirement. There's also a slotting fee. And it could be the total of, like, if they were to put you in the majority of their stores and then take on 3 SKUs, it would cost $1.2 million. So you pay $1.2 million to get on shelf. And if you don't sell, they just take you off the shelf. There's no guarantee that you can make that investment.
Sure.
Slotting fee, and that there's no contract that they sign that says we'll keep you here for the next 3 years. You could be on the shelf for 3 months.
Is funding, is this a type of business? Because I know many listeners, of course, know about funding restaurants and it's troublesome, very hard. Traditional lenders don't necessarily do that. But for product in retail and distribution and online sales, is that a little bit easier to put a plan together and go get a bank loan to help with this?
I did get bank loans, and the thing about product is you have something that they can lend against because you can do PO financing because you have a finished good that has a sale value. I did go to and get some revolving lines of credit. It was also based on me. I didn't have any other debt. I was relatively good. I was able to get, during COVID, I was able to get one of the small business loans from the government. And that was how I made the transition over to the co-packer, because they're making, 3 days worth of product, which is, $60,000, and they need to be paid for that. And you haven't sold it yet necessarily. And you're usually like manufacturing against an open PO so that you are going to get paid within those 30 days. But obviously there's a 30 to 60 day cash flow window that you have to fill. And so that did require me to get some bank loans. But I was I was shocked by how many banks had options for manufacturing. And I'm not even technically a manufacturer. I own the brand, so I'm in marketing, really, because I have a co-man who manufactures it for me. So I did start with bank loans, and then I went and raised capital via investors. And that is something which is ongoing, as you know, if you're an entrepreneur. And that's the hardest part. keeping the doors open and getting the bills paid and getting investors is always hard because there's always like you get to a hurdle and then there's the next hurdle before they're going to give you more money. And these are fickle times. It's hard. One of our biggest obstacles is inflation
Mm.
because there's inflation out on our finished good, and then consumers are buying less. So even though revenue is relatively flat year over year, consumers are buying less because the prices have increased. So
True.
inflation on alone is impacting everyone's velocities.
Have you found that some of that is because people are just shopping differently and ordering so much online? And if so, does that give you an opportunity to market your products there?
Yes, we do have online. So online is often like hailed as the holy grail, but the challenge with online, so I have Instagram, I have Amazon, I have my website, Mightylicious.com. We do Google ads, we do Meta ads. The cost on average to acquire a customer online is $35, but my bags of
Mm.
cookies cost $7.99. So online is really very successful with more expensive luxury products
Yeah, I see.
because you have to so we're constantly trying to get over this gap of $35 by selling like bundles, but it's very hard to get a consumer to enter into your market and try your product by buying 7 bags, right? Because they want to try it with one. And then if they like it, they might buy more. But even getting a consumer to buy 7 bags of cookies all at once is challenging. That's not a normal behavior. For 3 bags, yes, but 7
No.
of cookies, which is what it is required for me to break even with the marketing. So online, you're like, oh, this is amazing. The acquisition cost to get a consumer is like on average $35. And that is very expensive upfront.
Yeah, that's tough. That's
So my CFO did the math and she was like, there's now TikTok Shop and you hear all these stories about people going viral on TikTok Shop. Yes, if you are able to create a viral sensation on TikTok Shop, fantastic, but that is not an easy thing to do. You do not break even on TikTok Shop until you get to $60,000 a month in revenue.
wow. Okay, more than I thought.
That's a lot. And I was at Expo West just last month, and a guy from TikTok Shop came up to me and was selling me his platform, and he confirmed. I was like, I know. I mean, it's all, and this is the same for Amazon. It's the same for all of them. You have to get 60 grand a month in sales in order to break even, and that's a tremendous amount of marketing and COGS before you even get profitable. So it is not the holy grail that everyone help. I have a love-hate affair with marketing agencies because they're like, oh, we're gonna sell hundreds of thousands of dollars
Okay.
your product, and we took Chobani from $4 in sales to $10 million in sales, and it happened overnight, and it's gonna be like, ice cream, and it's gonna be so easy, and it's not. It's very expensive, and it is, acquiring customers, whether it's at the retail level or online, is expensive. People
And
aren't
you
gonna
mentioned
suddenly just come to you, and you're like, for me and it depends on your category, but your category, if you're disruptive in your category and it's you're not creating a category, if you're going into an established category, there's Mondelez owns it. So Mondelez is one of the biggest conglomerates of food. They own most brands in the grocery store. And so Mondelez owns, I'm pretty sure they own Oreo. They do. So when I go to market cookies, and even with all of my marketing spend every month, and in order to you have to spend $10,000 a month in order to actually get return on your marketing online. Even with $10,000 a month, Mondelez and Oreo gets the first 3 pages.
wow.
So if you type in cookies, you're going to have Oreo, 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 Oreo. It's going to go down for 3 pages before you get to Tate's. And after Tate's, you're going to get there with your $10,000 a month. So you're not even getting to the top of you're not even getting onto the first page of the search for gluten-free products.
Well, you also mentioned a couple of times traveling, expos, food shows.
Hmm?
Okay, so what's the purpose of those now? Is that helpful? Is that a really
Oh,
good
it's the
marketing tool?
best.
Yes.
It's how I get all my biggest customers. It's how I got into Sprouts Innovation. It's not how I got Whole Foods, but it's how it's because I have brokers and they get me meetings, but so the next hurdle after you get into a few retailers is to get into a national distributor. There's 2. It's KeHE and UNFI. And they are the gatekeepers. So you need to get into one or both of those distributors because they're the ones who get the food to everyone, whether it's an independent or specialty or it's a Giant or a Sprouts. They do all distribution. So as soon as you get into that, a distributor, but you're in this catch-22 in the beginning because in order to get a distributor, you need Whole Foods. In order to get Whole Foods, you sort of need a distributor type of wheel. So if you can like wedge your way in the way I did through one of these local programs and start building your business that way, eventually you're going to get into someone who is going to say, okay, I want Carolyn on my shelves. Unify, you have to pick her up. I did actually. So Unify, the distributors also have like an innovative, so I'm in a program called Unify Up Next. And I just submitted that through their website, and it's for emerging brands and they will say, you apply, you send them samples of your product. They go, oh, we really like you. We're going to put you in these 3 DCs where we think your product is going to resonate. And you don't necessarily have to have a big grocery store anchor you. So that is another way you can get in via the distributors if you have a really good, it's sort of like a pitch, like you send them a video and you pitch your product to them and then they take you or they don't. So that there's KeHE and Unify have those programs. So if you have a product, and you should definitely like be applying to those. That's how I got into Unify, and that really opened the door for me in a lot of places that I wouldn't have had access to.
So in these 9 years of product development and distribution and growth, how has your role changed? Do you spend most of your time, say, on developing the tasty product, or are you more on the marketing side, or are you still kind of running and having to do it all?
I do it all. So in the beginning, you are the only employee.
Yes, of course.
So I was running into Whole Foods selling cookies. I was creating the packaging. I was baking. I was putting the cookies in the packaging. I was putting them in my car and delivering them. And now I am the CEO. So I do like my responsibilities primarily. So I have an operations member. I have 3 operations team members. I have a VP of sales. I have a CFO. I have an accountant. I have a graphic designer. I have 4 marketing people. So I have a team dedicated to Instagram, a team dedicated to Meta and Google, and then I also have an Amazon team. So I manage all of that, and then I am R&D research. So we're developing a gluten-free vegan brownie. So I also develop all the recipes. I am usually there. Me and or my operations manager is usually there on bake days when we're with our co-man. I'm managing and facilitating a lot of the sales. So it's always better. I think I'm very proficient in sales. So not every founder, that's their skill set, and that's okay.
Right.
I am. So I am also at the meeting with retailers and customers and, selling. So I'm either coordinating my team or I'm actually physically doing it. I would say that the majority of my responsibilities now focus on sales and product development, but there isn't any decision that can be made without my authority. So I'm then sort of answering the questions and making the decisions for the rest of the team.
And you've got tasty product. And that's the bottom line. I mean,
Really
yes, it's clean and that's great and it's healthy. And I did not realize really the significance of being gluten-free. But all of that you did, and you're able to create a variety of products that absolutely positively taste good. So that's important. What's next? What are we going to see next that Carolyn's doing with Mightylicious?
Yeah, so I just hinted at it. So last year I have 7 gluten-free cookie flavors now. We started with our 3 flagship flavors, which was brown butter chocolate chip, double Dutch, and salted peanut butter. Those did so well at Whole Foods. At Whole Foods, I was literally in the store talking to the team. They're like, Carolyn, gluten-free is great, but can you make us a vegan gluten-free cookie? And I was like, you want me to bake without eggs, butter, or flour? Do you know what baking is? That is like the trinity. That's the holy trinity of baking. And I was like, are you insane? It's one thing to bake vegan, is another thing to bake gluten-free, but baking gluten-free and vegan means there's literally 0 protein. When you remove the gluten from the flour, the only protein left for structure and strength is in the butter and the eggs. So when you remove that, you have no structure, which means it just doesn't work. It just isn't a baked good. But I was like, no, I'm up for this challenge. And the cookie that's your favorite, which is our bestseller, is the oatmeal coconut. That's a 100-year-old recipe from my wife's side of the family. We launched. It's a wonderful. Like I like coconut. I love oatmeal, but I never was like, oh, there needs to be an oatmeal coconut. But this cookie is salty. It's sweet. It's a little bit exotic. It's comforting from the oatmeal. It's like It's like a hug, and it's also a punch. It's wonderful. It's just like everything you want from a cookie. And it's our bestseller, and it's great. And my mother-in-law served it to me one Christmas, and I was like, this is it. It's got the structure and the body from the oats. It's got strength and resiliency and absorbency from the coconut. I can take this and turn it into a vegan gluten-free product. I did, and that was so successful, it became my number one bestseller that I launched an entire line. So we now have 4 vegan gluten-free cookie, which means that they're gluten-free and allergen-friendly. So you can be anybody. You can have an egg allergy, you can have a soy allergy, you can have any allergy you want, and you can eat these products. Obviously not a coconut allergy, but and my vegan oatmeal coconut and my vegan chocolate chip are number 1 and number 3 on my bestseller.
Great.
So incredibly successful because I had the same mission with them was to make my mission from the very beginning was to make the best cookie I'd ever tasted. Didn't matter that was gluten-free. I just wanted to make the best possible cookie that I had ever tasted. And I succeeded with that with the brown butter chocolate chip. And then with the vegan, I was like, same thing. There can't be any compromise in quality and texture or anything. And I've succeeded in that. And then I was at a food show. So food shows, once you get into distributors, food shows are critical because you're out there with your product. The buyers are there. The people you need, the decision makers are there at these food shows, whether it's Expo West, which is the biggest food convention in the US, which is out in LA every year in March, or it's a trade show for one of your distributors. You need to be there with a booth and talking about your product and handing out samples. Because I can't tell you how many people I've handed samples to and they've been like, I don't want your product. It's gluten-free. It's gross, which is what I get all the time. And then they come back and they're like, that was the best cookie I've ever had. Could I have some more for my wife? Right? It is so critical to have to taste your product.
Yeah.
So food shows and trade shows are the way. If you're not like me and you can't just run and throw cookies at people, that's fine. Go to trade shows. And there's ones for distributors, but there's also independent ones. There's probably a national or annual food show in your industry for that one product, and just buy a booth. It is inexpensive. They're usually $4,000 to $10,000 for a booth, but you're going to have hundreds of, if not thousands of people try your products. There's going to be investors. There's going to be your retailers. There's going to be, support people. That's where you're going to find your operations people. Your distributors are going to be there. Everyone you want to know is going to be there. So they're critical. So we now have, I was talking about our products. So we now have 4 vegan flavors, 3 that are just gluten-free. And then I was at a trade show and I was explaining to a buyer, he said Kroger. And of course, Kroger is the biggest grocery store in the US. So I was like talking. And I was explaining to him what makes my cookies different is actually our flour blend. Because a cookie is a cookie, and I do have a unique recipe. But what I learned when I was making the gluten-free cookies is that gluten-free products often don't taste good, and there's 2 reasons. One is the rice flour, and one is the ancient grain. Rice flour in America is not milled for baking, it's milled for cooking. So it's milled to like a very fine sand consistency. Okay. And if you're using that to thicken a sauce, that's fine. It's going to completely dissolve and absorb the moisture. But a cookie has 7 minutes to like homogenize and then turn into a cookie. So when the flour's not milled fine enough, it can't absorb the moisture. And so what you end up with is like a sandy, gritty cookie. And I'm sure you've had that experience before. You'd bite it looks great, but then you get like that grittiness. It's the rice flour. The second thing, because rice flour has 1/400th the amount of protein as wheat flour. So you lose all that strength and structure and color and flavor that the protein or the gluten provides to wheat flour. So it's oftentimes replaced with an ancient grain like sorghum flour, millet flour, amaranth flour. I have nothing against ancient grains. I know that people love them. I love them with chicken piccata. Like eat your quinoa and your amaranth, a savory dish. But in a cookie, whether it's a chocolate chip cookie or a chocolate chip cookie or peanut butter cookie, the primary flavoring is vanilla, and vanilla is the bean of an orchid. It is basically a perfume, and it's beautiful and complex, but it's very delicate. And ancient grains have this acrid aftertaste. This sort of tastes like tar. And if it's with chicken piccata, it actually is great. It's wonderful. It's like this bitter, acrid aftertaste. You like it. But when you put it against vanilla, it's all you taste. So the 2 complaints people have about gluten-free products is 1, the grittiness or the texture, And then 2 is the aftertaste.
Yeah.
So you can't use an ancient grain in a baked good like a cookie or a croissant. Unfortunately, you can use it in savory dishes, but not in and have it taste good. So I was like, I have to create a flour blend that has enough protein that it will be strong enough, but also is fine enough that it doesn't have grittiness. So we work with actually co-op farmers in California and a mill out there, and they mill my flour for me to a
That's
spec
good.
so that you can bake with it. It's super powdery and soft. And then to replace the protein, we don't use an ancient grain at all. We use whole milk powder, which most bakeries use anyway. It's a very common ingredient in things like cake, wedding cakes, and birthday cakes. So that amplifies the flavor of everything. And in our vegan products and our vegan cookies, we use coconut milk powder. It works just the same way. So you have a flour that has the strength of wheat flour, it has the neutral flavor of a wheat flour, and it has the soft, pillowy texture that flour should have. And so it just works beautifully. It just works like flour. And you don't taste anything. Like in the cookies I sent you, there's no grittiness and there's no weird aftertaste. You just enjoyed the cookie.
No,
So
I think you hit it on the head. When you were saying that the goal really is to first create the cookie that hits target, which means it has to taste good.
Right.
And then, of course, secondarily, which is, of course, extremely important, is the fact that it's clean, it's vegan, it's gluten-free.
Yeah.
But
first, it has to taste good because it could be all those things, and if it doesn't taste good, no one's going to eat it. It
that's
doesn't
exactly
matter how
right.
healthy it is for you. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So I created these. So I created this flour blend in the very beginning when it was the first 3 months when I was like creating the cookies because nothing worked without my own flour blend. And that was like the real innovation. So I'm explaining this because it's hard to articulate, like saying to someone, I'm making gluten-free cookies that taste good. They don't believe you until they taste it. So I'm explaining to him this process. And he goes, actually, I'm the flour buyer at Kroger. And I know Eric, he's the cookie buyer. And I'll tell him, I'll give him cookies. I love them. He was like, can I buy your flour? And I was like,
no.
Yes. Because I was like, I make it. Like we make truckloads of it. But I didn't have any packaging for it. So I ran home from that trade show and I called my graphic designer. I was like, Philip, make me some flour bags. So I took Bob's Red Mill and I sent him a prototype. I was like, these are the dimensions and put the Mightylicious on it. And then I found, which is insane because it takes 6 months to get packaging. I found a company, which I will not reveal.
Okay.
I can make packaging in 48 hours. It's expensive, but they can do it. Sent my flour samples to him in a week. It took me a week to go from I've been asked to it to shipping it.
That's incredible.
And Kroger picked it up. So I now have 3 flour SKUs because it makes sense.
Good.
The hardest thing about gluten-free baking is it never works because the flour doesn't work and it won't work. There's nothing you can do to make the flour work if it's not milled correctly and doesn't have the right ingredients. So we now have a all-purpose gluten-free flour blend, an all-purpose vegan flour blend, and a vegan brownie mix, which is my best-selling SKU. It's the best thing I've ever baked. And then we're working on, because the vegan brownie mix has been so successful and people have resonated with people, a ready-to-eat brownie that is, we've created it. We're just still testing it to make sure it's shelf stable. So that's what's coming. So new to market last year is the flour blends if you're a baker. Or know someone who's gluten-free and wants to bake. And then coming is our vegan, gluten-free, ready-to-eat brownie.
Wow. Well, fantastic. You're busy. You've got a lot of good stuff working, and you've got, more stuff coming at us. This has been truly enjoyable. Thank you so much, Carolyn, for taking the time, walking us through. The products are fantastic, listeners. Go to any one of those items and get yourself some Mightylicious. You'll find your own faves. I've got mine. Go online and order them that way. But in the meantime, also, hopefully you take to heart some of the stories of getting started, testing, distributing, financing, marketing that is involved in trying to get your particular product bottled, canned, baked, and successfully sold. So those tidbits have been very, very helpful. Carolyn, thank you so much again for giving us these tidbits of information. Thanks for sharing your story. Mightylicious, guys, is the brand. So for everyone out there that is interested in doing something like this, I hope that you've learned something from it today. For Mightylicious, we wish you continued success. Everyone, go make it a great shift, and we'll catch up with you on another Corner Booth real soon. And a quick thank you to ServeSafe for helping make this episode possible. Visit servesafe.com to learn more.
Thank you for joining us on the Corner Booth. We'll be back next Tuesday with more inspiration, insights, and industry best practices to help you engage your team, delight your guests, and grow your business.